you need a vacation. With your mind
Black Country Communion are a UK/US hard rock supergroup, and they're named after the Black Country, which is an area around Birmingham in England. The band are Joe Bonamassa on guitar and sometimes vocals, who's had a huge solo career in blues rock. Derek Sherinian of Dream Theater on keyboards, who's also had a solo career. Jason Bonham, son of John Bonham of Led Zeppelin, on drums. And Glenn Hughes, who's done most of the lead vocals and played the bass, who is a classic British hard rock singer who's sung for Trapeze, Deep Purple, and Black Sabbath, and had a solo career. The band came about almost accidentally after Bonamassa and Hughes did an impromptu performance together, and then they approached the other two to make this a more kind of intentional thing. That was 2009. They released 3 albums before disagreements led to them splitting in 2013. But 3 years later, in 2016, they reformed and are still going, although I understand that this is deliberately intermittent due to other commitments. They have managed 2 more studio albums so far. Hi, my name's Dan, and this is a review of 2 by Black Country Communion, sometimes known as Black Country Communion 2, which was released in 2011 and is the second album by Black Country Communion. So this, a little bit of explanation needs to be given of how this video fits with the rest of my channel. So most of my channel, the reviews on this channel is of the 3,000 greatest albums of all time, according to a list, a website called Acclaim Music, which is an amalgamated critic list, and I'm working my way through from 3,000. Hopefully, one day I'll get to 1. It's a huge undertaking, which was probably quite stupid to undertake, but I'm just over a third of the way through. Sometimes I step off this. A couple of the reasons why I step off it. First is that I do some albums, I call them criminally missing, which is albums that I really think should be on this list and aren't. And I bet everyone would be able to have their own list of that. I've also got what I call hidden gems, which are albums that I think that not many people are going to know about. But I would like to, bring to a bit more public awareness, such as it is on my channel. So I do the Hidden Gems series. And then I've got a few which are neither that end nor that end of the spectrum. They're somewhere in the middle. They're somewhat known, not well known enough to be on the list, but they're great albums. And I call these Dan's picks. And this is one of those. Okay. Finally, I'm actually going to start talking about the album. So it's a hard rock album with a strong blues element. This is emphasized particularly by Joe Bonamassa's playing. This is very much a blues player. I discovered Black Country Communion after a period of time in which I discovered quite a few other things, including Dream Theater and Joe Bonamassa. So they look good on paper, and they are good in reality. And when I heard that they'd formed, I kind of went, "Oh, I need to hear this," and so I did. I've kind of almost picked this album at random out of their album, but it is a great album, as you can see from the score that I've given it, or I think so anyway. It's a deliberate throwback to 70s heavy rock. So they're being compared to Deep Purple, probably because there's quite a few tracks that have got organ on them. So, we've got Derek Sherinian here, who's a keyboard player, and a very, very good keyboard player. And at times they get him on an organ, and that gives it this Deep Purple had a very kind of strong organ presence. Also, they've been compared to Led Zepp, and I think that the Led Zepp thing is probably a stronger influence here. So it's a natural thing to start thinking about, because Jason Bonham, who's their drummer, is John Bonham's son, and John Bonham was the drummer for Led Zepp. But I think there are other legitimate reasons why you could draw comparisons with Led Zepp. One is some of the harmonic structures that they've got that have got a kind of Eastern influence to them that Led Zepp had a tendency to do. One of them is on this album, Battle for Hadrian's Wall, which is a nice track, which starts with an acoustic guitar. It sounds very Led Zepp with its kind of acoustic guitar-y bits. And probably also, excuse my cough, there's I Can See Your Spirit and Save Me both have riffs at the start where the bass and the guitar are very much playing the same thing in a very Led Zepp kind of way. Now, I'm going to reference somebody else here. There are a couple of tracks here, uh, Little Secret and Cold, which are very kind of blues ballady tracks and reminded me of Gary Moore. Now, I've not seen that from anyone else, but it feels like that kind of classic slow blues ballad stuff that he did so well. Um, the other things that I'm going to reference here, just one more. The rhythm of the vocals in the track Crossfire, I would say, is more like 90s rock and reminded me of Lenny Kravitz or something like maybe even Guns N' Roses at times. There's others that I can kind of hear this kind of more fast kind of spitting out these things. So obviously there are going to be comparisons made here between this album and some of those 70s albums. The recording is cleaner for obvious reasons. They're tight, probably tighter than some of the 70s rock had a kind of looseness and feel to it. This has a tighter feel to it. The playing's really strong. That's not at all unexpected, given who the people are here. I was going to talk about them individually. So Joe Bonamassa's got a great blues rock feel that I love just with about anything that he does. He's technically amazing, but he's got a real feel to him. Again, I'm going to compare him to Gary Moore because he uses kind of overdriven guitar sounds like Gary Moore did, and but also has so much feel in what he plays. It's great. Derek Sherinian on the keyboard is overused, underused, I think, given his skills. He's an amazing player, and there are times when all he seems to be given is block pad chords. Maybe he was very happy with that, and I don't want to throw shade on him because of that, but I feel like that there was opportunities there to use him more than have been used on this album. The drumming's great, and as much as from as little as I know about drumming, I would say he actually sounds quite like John Bonham from Led Zepp. I can't imagine why that might be the case. And there's a particular thing about the way he plays hi-hats that's kind of slightly more open than a lot of people would play them very tight. And this is kind of more of a kind of washy feel to the hi-hat, which is very John Bonham. The singing's really competent. It's got a very kind of rock style song. It's more rocky from Glenn than it is from Joe. And I felt like there was similarities between Glenn's voice and Dio's voice, Ronnie James Dio, who I reviewed a Rainbow album recently, and it reminded me of that quite a bit. It's great. There's some great songs. There's some interesting topics. There's some amazing playing. If I've got a criticism, it's that it feels at times a bit on the measured side rather than it doesn't have as much of the feeling as passion as some of the great 70s rock. And I think some of that comes through from the cleanness and the amount of time they will have spent on the production, but also possibly just because most of these guys are getting on a bit. And so things change as you get older in terms of passion, I think. I would say that one of the things that this album shows is there's still a place for hard rock in the world that isn't metal. And that's a good thing. There's not enough of this stuff around, I think. So I really like this album. But as always, I'd love to know what you think of the album. So please really let me know by leaving a comment. And that's it from me for now.